Recruiters just don't look at cover letters the same anymore. You've probably all heard of that famous statistic that recruiters only spend around 15 to 20 seconds looking at CVs, so it probably wouldn't surprise you to know that it's a heck of a lot lower for cover letters. And so in this video, I want to share with you some tips that I've used myself to write the best possible cover letters, and make sure you stay tuned to the end because I'll be sharing a free template that you can use yourself to land your dream job. Welcome, and if you're new here, I'm Kieran Panchal, and here I help you navigate the crazy decade that is your 20s. So if you're trying to figure out life just like me, consider joining me on this journey by subscribing down below. Now let's start off with the purpose of a cover letter. Why does it exist? A cover letter really exists to help the organization or the recruiter get a better understanding about you. CVs are very much focused on hard skills and experiences. And so it can come across very black and white to an organization or to a recruiter when they're looking through it. And so the cover letter helps add a bit more color to that person, helps you better understand with some additional information what type of person that candidate is, and also more importantly, whether they would be suitable for your organization. Now that sounds fairly simple. How difficult can it be to tell someone why you might be right for the job and why you want to work for them? But so many people just don't do cover letters very well, either because they don't put the time into it or just because they don't really understand how best to write a cover letter. And having gone through hundreds of applications, both when recruiting people and looking for jobs myself, I think I've got a good understanding of what some of the challenges that people face when writing cover letters are, but also more importantly, what really makes a good one and that will help you stand out. There are broadly three things that I think make a successful cover letter. The first one is balance. The second one is brevity, and the third one, I couldn't think of anything else beginning with B, so it's just structure. So let's talk about the first one of those, balance. Balance is all around making your cover letter talk about yourself, your skills and your experiences, and why you are right for the advertised role, but also why you have specifically chosen that company over either their competitors or any other company in the entire world. Now that means that basically you can't mass apply when it comes to cover letters. And I've seen so many cover letters, and I was guilty of this as well when I left university, of just mass applying. And the problem with mass applying is that your cover letter that you create will just be generic and will not answer the question of why it is that you specifically want to work for that company. And also bear in mind that even if you're applying to the same role, some of the job descriptions and personal profiles will actually be different. And so you won't even be answering that question either. And so when it comes to cover letters, there is no mass application approach that really works. And so you do have to take the time to research, particularly about the company, be it from their website or from other people that work at that organization, and be very clear in your cover letter about why it is that you specifically want to work for them, but also balance that with the skills and experience and things that you can also bring to that company. Right, so the second is brevity, something that I have struggled with in the past, and many would say that I still struggle with. But that is just about essentially considering the readability of the cover letter that you provide. Now, it's something that a lot of people forget about because you want to pack your cover letter with all of the reasons and information why you are right for the role. But the thing you're failing to think about when doing that is you're neglecting the reader, the recruiter, the hiring manager. You're failing to understand their needs. And think about it, if something comes across your desk and it's just blocks of paragraphs, you're just not gonna want to read it. And it's exactly the same for these recruiters and hiring managers. And I know when a cover letter has come across my desk and I literally just open it and I can just see the preview and just blocks of text, I'm already dreading reading it. And so being brief in what you write, but making sure that when you are brief, you're being brief on the relevant things to that specific role and that company will help make sure that the recruiter actually spends the time reading it and actually then gets a better understanding of you and starts to picture you in that organization. So thirdly, it's structure. This is something that is arguably the hardest part of writing any form of kind of persuasive written content. How do you get across the points that you want to make in a way that makes it compelling, in a way that you tell a really thoughtful and insightful story, rather than just blabbing a load of information on a page and just hoping some of it sticks? And so I found a really good way of structuring cover letters that has worked for me, and that is to really focus your cover letter on answering the following three questions. Why you? Why them? and then why you for them. Now, these 3 questions, I think, really help focus your cover letter on the things that are most important to the recruiter or the hiring manager that is going to be reading this cover letter. So why you is focused on those relevant skills and experience you have that are applicable to that job. Why them is what we talked about before in terms of it being specific to why you want to work for that company. And then the third bit, which is the bit that a lot of people miss out, but I found at least, is the bit that really adds the most value. And when people do this right, it really, really makes a difference. That is why you for them. Why, when you join that organization, will it make a perfect partnership? What's going to be in it for the organization and what's in it for you? And finding that point and being able to articulate that is just a way that helps the recruiter really start to picture you in that organization. And as we talked about earlier in this video, when a recruiter starts to picture you in an organization, that is arguably the biggest hurdle in the recruitment journey over with. And you can really start to do that in the cover letter. So now let me show you guys the template that I put together for you guys that will be available for free for you to download down below, that I've used myself to secure a number of jobs in the technology consulting space. So I'd start off firstly with a format that is very similar to your CV. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, I did a video about how to write a perfect CV as well, which will be linked up here somewhere, where you can access the download to a CV template that I have also used myself. But this cover letter template pretty much follows that. But I would start off firstly with the kind of very basic information about yourself, the date, and who you're addressing the cover letter to. And I think it's always important to try and address it to a specific person, be it the recruiter that you've been talking to, the hiring manager if you know them specifically, or anyone else that is going to be directly involved in the recruitment process. But this is all kind of just very standard cover letter information. I would then go on to the introduction. So this is the bit at the beginning of your cover letter that is a short paragraph or a couple of sentences about the specific role that you're applying for and why you think you'd be a good fit for the role that is advertised. So I've included an example here for you, but it's important to be brief, but also make it specific about the role that you're applying to and why you would be a good fit for that role. And then it then goes into the bit that I was talking about earlier when it comes to bullet points and being brief and making your cover letter readable when it comes to your relevant skills and experience. So the way I like to do this is through a couple of different bullet points, where I try and max out at 4, and I try and do 3 bullet points on relevant experiences or specific skills I have for the job. And then I have one of the bullet points around a really kind of unique, specific reason about why I want to join that company in particular. And then on the right-hand side, I include a bit of a detailed description that gives the person reading this a bit more information about what my experience was or what my skill is or whatever it might be. And again, I've included an example that you guys can use. And then I would essentially just wrap it up. I'd wrap it up with answering the question of why you for them, helping the recruiter understand why you would be a good fit in that organization and starting to get them, as we talked about, picturing you in that organization. And then always remembering to include that thank you note at the end and mentioning that you're looking forward to their response. There's always just a nice, polite way to round off a cover letter, or really any kind of letter you're writing when it comes to a prospective job. And that's really it. It's not too difficult and it's not kind of overly complex. And I think the thing I would say is that maybe looking at this, you might think that's not enough on a page. And one thing I would say is don't be afraid of white space. In the same way, when you talk about a speech and you're always encouraged to kind of stop for silences, and actually the silences feel longer for the person speaking than they do for the audience, I think the same lesson applies when it comes to cover letters as well, in that actually the white space is not necessarily a bad thing, and actually improves the likeliness of someone reading all of it, and also just improves the general readability of your cover letter. And so if you do have completed this template and you think maybe it's got a bit too much white space, my advice would be don't worry about that too much. As long as you've got the points across that you want in a succinct way, that's the most important thing, not the fact that you filled every inch of white space on that paper. Cover letters don't often get the respect they deserve, be it when it comes to the time that people put into writing them or the help and information that is available online in terms of writing them, with all of the focus being really on CVs. But what I found from my experience, both in terms of applying to jobs and also being a hiring manager, is that a really well-written cover letter can actually make a really big difference. It helps you understand a person, or start to understand a person much better than you can just from a CV. And it starts to, as I've mentioned before in the video, helps you start to picture that person in your organization. And I can't stress enough, when you as a recruiter start to picture somebody in your organization, that is just a huge tick in the box. And so hopefully you guys find the template that we went through in this video useful. As I said, it will be linked down below where you can download it for free and use it. And I'd love to hear in the comments if you did use it and were successful, or if you just have any other general tips that you found yourself from writing cover letters. I'd love to hear what some of them are in the comments down below. Now, if you have written your cover letter and are starting then on to move on to maybe updating or changing your CV, I did also make a video on how you can write a CV, which will be linked somewhere up here. So go check that out if you're looking to improve or change the way you format and write your CV. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, found it informative, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.